For a long time, I asked my husband, Matt, to fix the washing machine. He bragged that it would only take 10 minutes, but he never got around to it. The dirty laundry was piling up and I had already started washing it by hand. Matt would just throw the soiled jeans in the hamper, refusing to wash them himself. I couldn't take it anymore, and we got into an argument. He yelled at me to call someone if I wasn't happy with it, and then left, slamming the door. I sat and thought about it and decided to do just that. I called the repair shop and arranged for a technician to come. I was told that the technician, Jake, would be here within the hour. Not wanting to be idle, I cleaned up the rooms, dusted, and put things in order. I vacuumed the carpet, wiped down the kitchen tables, and even reorganized a few shelves that had stood in disarray for too long. Cleaning helped me focus and forget about my fight with Matt, at least for a while. Soon the doorbell rang. I peered through the peephole, and there was a man in the prime of his life, pleasant-looking, with a friendly smile that made me feel at ease. I opened the door, greeted him, and let him in. Jake introduced himself, and I led him to the washing machine, explaining the problem. He listened attentively, nodding as I spoke, and assured me that he would take care of it. I left him to his task, hoping for the best. While Jake fiddled with the washing machine, I busied myself in the kitchen, making tea and cookies. I was still curious about this stranger in my house. There was something comforting about having someone around who was willing to help, unlike Matt, who seemed to always put things off. I was curious about Jake's story, whether he had a family, whether he was happy with his life. It was strange that in just a short time of his presence I felt less alone. After about half an hour, Jake came out and asked for a drink of water. I poured him a mug, and he thanked me with a short nod. He seemed polite and focused, not the type to waste time. While he was drinking, I asked him how long he'd been doing repairs. He smiled and said he'd been doing it for almost 10 years, ever since he graduated from trade school. He talked a bit about the different places he'd worked and the people he'd met, and I was genuinely curious. It had been so long since I'd had a real conversation, not about bills and household chores. The next time I saw him was an hour later. He came out of the bathroom looking pleased and smiled at me. "Everything's ready, Ma am. Go check it out," he said with a sense of accomplishment in his voice. I loaded the dirty laundry into the machine, added detergent and conditioner, hesitantly turned it on, and oh, miracle of miracles, it worked perfectly. Overwhelmed with joy, I couldn't help myself and hugged Jake, thanking him profusely. It had been so long since anything had worked, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. He smiled, clearly pleased with my reaction, and I realized he liked making a difference for someone. "Do you want me to make you dinner?" I asked, almost on a whim. Jake looked a little surprised, but then shrugged. "Well, sure, why not?" he replied with a chuckle. It had been a while since I'd cooked for someone who genuinely appreciated it, and I felt oddly excited at the prospect. I led him into the kitchen and served him mashed potatoes and meatloaf. I sat down across from him, and he ate quickly and with gusto, something my husband never did. As I watched Jake enjoy his meal, I realized how much I missed simple companionship, the kind that wasn't filled with tension and unspoken frustrations. Jake must have noticed my pensive expression, because he decided to make a joke. "You took me in, fed me. How about you offer me a bath and a bed?" He laughed, and I nodded, replying, "I'd love to." He looked at me, a little surprised by my answer, but then his expression softened. I invited him into the bedroom, exactly what I wanted at that moment. It felt spontaneous and right at the same time, like I was taking back control of my own happiness. We spent almost an hour in bed, and for that short time I forgot about the stress and resentment that had been building up for so long. Jake was gentle and attentive, and I felt a connection I hadn't felt in forever. Afterward, we lay there for a few minutes, catching our breath. Jake turned to me and said, "You know, I don't usually get tips like that for fixing the washing machine." I laughed, and it made me feel really good. We chatted for a long time about everything and nothing. He told me about his dog, a golden retriever named Max, and how he likes to take him on long weekend hikes. I told him a little bit about my life too, how I used to love to paint before things got so hectic. It felt good to open up, if only a little. Eventually, Jake got dressed and smiled warmly at me, getting ready to leave. He didn't charge me a penny, and I realized it wasn't just about the money. "If you need anything else, just call the office," he said, his voice kind and sincere. I nodded, thanking him again, and watched him walk out the door. For the first time in a long time, I felt calm and content. It wasn't just the washing machine, it was the fact that I felt seen, heard, and appreciated, even if only for a little while. After Jake left, I sat on the couch for a while longer, going over everything that had happened in my mind. It was surreal, like a dream I didn't want to end. I thought about Matt and how much things had changed between us. We used to be happy, laughing and sharing, but now it felt like we were just two people living under the same roof and avoiding each other. I wondered if we could ever go back to the way things used to be, or if it was time to accept that things had changed forever. That evening, I decided to take a long, hot bath. While soaking in the tub, I allowed myself to think about what I really wanted. I realized that I craved connection, real, meaningful connection. I wanted to feel alive again, to feel meaningful. It wasn't just about the washing machine, dinner, or even what was happening in the bedroom. It was about someone just listening to me, someone caring enough to be there for me when I needed it. The next morning, Matt came home. He was quiet, as if he knew something had changed. He asked if the washing machine was fixed, and I just nodded. He didn't ask any more questions, and I didn't give any more answers. As I watched him go about his business, I realized that I had a choice to make. I could either continue to live this half-life full of resentment and unmet needs, or I could take a step towards something else, something better. I wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was certain: I couldn't keep waiting for things to change. I had to change things myself, to take control of my own happiness. And maybe that meant letting go of the past and accepting whatever came next, whether it was with Matt, someone like Jake, or on my own. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful, and that was enough.